Hey guys, Anders here, and this is everything you need to know about the Battlefield 2042 patch 4.0/April update. If you end up enjoying the video, hit the like button and be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 25,000 subs, inching there ever so slightly. Thank you guys so much for all the support you've been showing on the past videos. And without further ado, let's just try to go over some of the most important things and some strange changes that you may or may not agree with. You can comment down below if you do or not. As of this video coming out, the patch should actually be live and ready to play. So you can also comment and tell me if the patch broke anything you noticed, because that's a classic thing that DICE loves to do as well. Right off the bat, I want to tell you guys that there's a ton of miscellaneous changes and bug fixes in this patch that will have pretty much no impact or actual noticeable effect on your gameplay. So if you would like to read over the full patch notes with over like 400 changes, I'll link them. It'll be the first link in the description. So starting to go over these changes, we'll go over something that actually isn't in the patch notes, but it is simultaneously one of the most important changes you could possibly make to Battlefield 2042. As you guys on PC probably know, Battlefield 2042's mouse input is absolutely terrible. It feels like you're kiting your mouse rather than actually using it. But Drunksy actually went ahead and told us that there are changes to mouse aiming in this update. It isn't captured by the notes though, but there has been changes done to ensure that mouse sensitivity works similar to previous Battlefield titles. Now, that really doesn't answer whether or not the mouse will feel any better. That's just something we're going to have to figure out with this patch. Now, moving right ahead to changes that are actually listed within the patch notes. First of all, they're adding VoIP, so hooray, people can use VoIP. They're adding an end-of-round scoreboard because apparently they thought that adding a scoreboard and not making it show up at the end of the round, which is the entire point of adding a scoreboard, was just not a good idea for this Battlefield. In the matchmaking and social section, the highlight of this is fixed a bug where a user encounters a matchmaking loop and gets sent back to the lobby. This has to do with the persistent data errors, and this was annoying. Sometimes you would queue for a game and it'd just be a constant loop, so apparently that's fixed. In the progression and unlock section, they have adjusted ribbons to make them easier to unlock. For whatever reason, they made them easier to unlock in Rush especially, so that's kind of strange. Further adjustment to specific ribbons, so the Logistics, Objective, Intel, Combat, and Wingman ribbons all have had some of their specificities changed. And probably the strangest change in this whole subsection is they actually went in and increased XP you gain from support actions while decreasing objective actions to apparently compensate for that increase in the support actions. And for instance, if you disrupted an enemy with an EMP, you used to gain 10 XP, now you gain 20. If you capture an objective, it used to be 375 XP, now it's down to 200. So I have a feeling that the community's not going to actually like this a lot, but me personally, I really couldn't care less. Moving on to the very brief maps section, probably the most important change in the entire update is the fact that they have removed sprinkler damage, everybody. The sprinkler meta on Kaleidoscope is done for. You will no longer be killed by a sprinkler that shoots strange ice gas that freezes you in place. Hashtag RIP sprinkler meta in the comments. Moving ahead to the Battlefield Portal section of this, there is an absolutely amazing amount of changes here, so I'm just going to pick out some select highlights. Apparently they made several improvements to the Portal browser system. Ideally, name and description is now auto-filled. Name and description fields of present experiences are now empty by default. Just little quality of life things. And the rest of the changes are pretty miscellaneous bug fixes. In the audio section, the most important change within this section is absolutely the fact that they added audio for birds on renewal. That is just, I was personally asking for that for months, so I'm very happy to see that change. But in all seriousness, there really isn't much to go over in the audio section. Again, various bug fixes, various audio improvements with like vehicles and stuff like that. Moving ahead to the mode section, specifically breakthrough right off the bat. Apparently they fixed air vehicles being able to spawn at the opponent's HQ in the start of the round. Very interesting. They actually have the audacity to put a hazard zone bug fix section in here. We're not even going to talk about that. In the rush section, they patched the fact that gadgets can actually prevent you from arming the MCOM. And in Conquest, they adjusted spawn locations to prevent you from spawning out of bounds immediately. Moving along to the soldiers section of fixes, but I just want to remind people, if you enjoy the video, if you like the content, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to hit 25,000 subs. Thank you guys so much. Moving on to the soldiers section, this actually has some very important fixes. namely, fix an issue where dead soldiers or friendly soldiers would block bullets. This would happen all the time, especially in 128 player modes. You would go to shoot somebody and a dead body or a teammate would just completely block every bullet, and you just basically died because of it. Another really important fix is they fixed an issue where players would be impossible to hit if they were entering an exposed vehicle seat. And I think this is actually a bug Ravik showcased on his channel, where if you entered a vehicle prone, you could not take any damage, which was obviously game-breaking. Now, moving to the animation section, they made revive animations a lot smoother, and they toned down weapon movement during the initial ADS after deploying, and they smoothed out transition animations for switching between crouching and standing. The specialist section of this update contains a lot of bug fixes for various specialists, but it also contains complete redesigns of some of the specialist traits, such as Rao and Pike. For instance, they actually replaced Rao's Trojan network with Pike's threat perception trait, which means that when Rao takes damage from enemies, he'll automatically spot the enemy for himself. But Pike, when Pike damages enemies, they're spotted for everyone. So that is definitely very, very strong. And moving on to the Casper section, and you might be asking right now, did they fix putting C4 on drones? The answer is no. If they did, it's not in the patch notes. And all the fixes they put in Casper's section are largely irrelevant. The most important fix, which would be fixing the fact that you can attach C4 to his drone, is not present here. For Sundance, there was a ton of grenade tracking and pathing fixes. So your grenades, if you threw one and was tracking a vehicle, it wouldn't, veer off and attack something else or just spin around in a circle. So it should be more consistent with that stuff. McKay received some very interesting changes. Namely, they made it actually easier for McKay to grapple onto moving vehicles. Players can no longer take damage from the grappling hook while downed, which is depressing because we all know that a grapple hook kill is just humiliating. They also adjusted McKay's walking animation when aiming down sight. The sight should no longer misalign with where shots are fired. That's very weird considering I play McKay. It must have been a rare bug because I would have complained about that constantly if it was actually happening all the time. But regardless, apparently they have fixed it. Moving on to the HUD/UI, which contains some absolutely massive additions and changes, which should have been in the game regardless. The highlights of this section are absolutely the fact that they added scaling options for the minimap, team, personal log, world log, and player/vehicle info, chat, and vehicle passenger list. There's a ton of stuff listed there. They also added opacity sliders from previous Battlefield games, so now you can actually customize your HUD to get rid of all that annoying screen clutter when you aim down sights. The specific sliders they added are for friendly, squad, enemy, revive, objective, and ping marker icons. Each one of these has their own option in the display HUD icon section. Moving on to the gadgets section, which has a ton of very, very specific things. So if you want to read the full gadgets section, click the link down below for the full patch notes. But one of the most important changes in this section is fixed an issue that prevented equipping the IBA armor plate while you were being healed at the same time. I have died to this bug, 5,000 times, so glad to see that's fixed. Now to probably the most interesting section of this entire update, the weapon attachment behavior section. So they gave a little model here where they showed what they were talking about in terms of the attachments. So A, B, C, and D for the different attachment sections. For A, we're talking about the compensators, and you see they list how they function before and how they function after. So how they function before this patch is compensators would reduce horizontal recoil and increase vertical recoil. In Update 4.0, they apparently improve recoil control in general, I assume, but reduce weapon accuracy. Now, this is just very strange to me because I disagree with this type of balancing, and they've also done it for the grips as well. In Update 3.3, the Rattlesnake Light Grip improved accuracy while moving, but reduced accuracy while static. In this update, it increases hipfire accuracy, but reduces accuracy while ADS. And with a game like Battlefield 2042, where the average engagement distance is super long, like we're talking probably the longest average engagement distance of any Battlefield, to have an attachment that reduces accuracy while ADS is just very strange to me. I don't really understand it. For the sights, namely the Mall Hybrid, in this update, the ADS speed has been decreased for that sight, and the zoom levels and optics will now persist on death. So if you were using this site as, say, 3x, and then you died, you will now respawn and the site will still be on 3x, whereas previously it would reset to 1.5. And the last attachment category, which is subsonic rounds. Now keep in mind, this does not actually encompass the entire ammo selection here, right? They're missing standard rounds, they're missing heavy rounds. This is just for subsonic rounds as an example. For subsonic rounds, at least on the AC-42, base recoil reduced in 4.0, reduced muzzle flash, and decreased projectile velocity makes sense for a subsonic round. And for the rest of the section, it's just a bunch of miscellaneous bug fixes. Moving on to the weapons section. The highlights of this section are the fact that they nerfed the PKP's recoil, they nerfed the AC-42's bullet damage drop-off and effective range. They fixed multiple bugs with the Magnum, they reduced the scope shake when firing on the DM7 and the VCAR, and the two most important changes that they just throw in here randomly is fixed an issue where weapons would have inconsistent dispersion or recoil. That's a massive fucking problem. And it wouldn't surprise me if I get on the game today and the game feels completely different because of that. And the other super important fix is that they fixed an issue which prevented bullets from dealing the correct damage. Wow. That's a bug in your game? Are we out of beta yet, guys? When's the release? Is it tomorrow? Just go ahead and let everyone know, Dice. Moving on to the vehicle section, they gave an example as to how they reduced the overall vehicle count using Breakthrough 64-player for Kaleidoscope. For instance, Sector 1 vehicle count went from 17 to 13, Sector 2 went from 18 to 17, Sector 3 went from 19 to 17. And keep in mind, the reduction in vehicles, I think, is actually the attack vehicles. That's what's actually making that difference in that number, not the transport vehicles, to my knowledge. So there'll be less attack helicopters, less tanks, that sort of thing. And just like a lot of this section of this update, there's an absolutely unbelievable amount of miscellaneous bug fixes here. Again, if you want to read it all, click the link in the description. There were actually some very small bolt nerfs to a specific weapon, namely the missile launcher. The Condor actually had the 50mm buffed, so they increased the damage of that thing from 60 to 65, and I think they reduced the splash damage or whatever the impact impulse is from 8,000 to 3,000. It should now two-shot a Nightbird, and this was already overpowered in my opinion. I have absolutely no idea why they would buff this. And last but not least, after 13 minutes of sifting through a bunch of fucking patch notes, we have reached the final change. For the T28/M185 tanks, the heat shell has seen an impact damage increase from 90 to 15, and the replenish time per shell increased from 6 seconds to 6.8 seconds. If I did a full video going every single change on this update, I seriously think this video would be 45 minutes long. So I really do appreciate you guys if you watched to the end. If you did, subscribe to the channel. I post regularly and I stream every single day at twitch.tv/enders. Link is in the description. Go drop it a follow, join the Discord, interact with the community, and follow me on Twitter. Feel free to tell me if this update did anything in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one.